My name is Nicole Hippie. I'm going to be your presenter from the Hyphen side, and we're going to be looking at the bricks solution. And then after my presentation is finished, I'll turn it over to Demery Walters on the informXL side. So let's jump into the bricks solution here first of all. During the presentation today, on the bricks ERP side, we're going to go over creating your job budgets directly from your sales contract. So pulling all of that data in for you. And then releasing your purchase orders to the trades and suppliers your way. So you'll be able to release purchase orders if you wanted to by cost code, trade, supplier, stage of construction, or my preferred preference is all at once, but completely up to you how you want to release your purchase orders. And then you have the flexibility directly within the job cost display area of tracking and viewing a number of different features. So we can look at our WIP, our cost categories, earnest money, purchase orders, and much more, all right from that section. And then I'll finish off my portion of today's presentation by taking a look at a report that'll show us budget versus job costs as a comparison side. And then when I'm finished doing that, I'll turn it over to Demery. So today, let's go take a peek, first of all, on our bricks sales side. So in the bricks sales feature, we will take a look at a job here, first of all. On the right-hand side is a shortcuts navigation pane. So I'm going to go to my job list, and I'm going to pull up a job that I do believe is recently sold, but we haven't actually processed any information on yet. So I'm going to go into lot 56, and we'll wind up playing with two different lots today. We're going to play in Cottonwood Place a lot most of the time. So let's take a look at lot 56 before we release those purchase orders out to the field. On the job level right now, I can go in, and before I release purchase orders, I probably want to make sure that I have all of my change order information ready to go on the estimating side. So I'm going to go and take a look at my change orders really quickly. I have one here. Visually, I can tell right away because it is green that it's been approved, but it also says approved on the far right-hand side here. I'm going to click on that change order and take a peek at the information that we have. So in the job detail, or the change order detail, I can see all of the different change orders that have been added to this customer's contract. So that's perfect. Again, it has been approved already, and everything is marked approved on the far right-hand side, so I don't have to worry about that. Using my shortcuts tool, I'm just going to go right back to that job for a moment, and I'm going to make sure that all of this information has been sent over to the bricks ERP side. Currently, it has not, because it says it's missing here. So all of this change order information, I want to make sure it's been sent over because it has been finalized right now. So I'm just going to hit update purchasing. It's as simple as that. Now it all says current on the far right-hand side, and I am good to go with processing my original job budget with my change orders all at the same time. We do, while I'm here though, also have a margin sheet. So on this margin sheet, and it's all based off of user permissions, so naturally certain people are not going to be able to see this margin sheet. There's a couple of places you can see it in brick sales, but we do have it at the job level. So I can see my direct costs, my indirect and overhead, and my totals, and then a forecasted percentage at this time that I'm looking at making. So right now, let's go over to the bricks ERP side and show you how we're going to take all that information that we generated at time of contract, from the contract and the actual change orders, into a budget. So I'm going to go into purchasing. I'm going to go down to preliminary purchasing. Now, there could be other team members doing work in here. There are a few right now. I'm going to bring in this new job to create this budget. So from here, I'm going to type in my project number. And I could have looked that up using the lookup menu on the far right-hand side here, but we were just there, so I know the job information, and I'm going to hit OK and generate. It will add a line item on here. I currently have no details in on this particular job. I'm going to process it as of today's date. Now you can pick and choose that if you've got additional pricing out for future pricing. We could have brought in based off of tomorrow's date if I knew my prices were going to roll over, but we're just going to leave it as today's date for now. I can process additional jobs at one time, but we're just going to leave this one in here. So it's always asking me questions. If I'm doing this the same way every single time, I could just hit skip to end in the bottom left. But I'm going to generate all takeoff data, all contract data at this time. I'm going to continue on. I don't want job option data only. I want everything. So I'm going to skip past that flag. I'm going to bring in all cost codes, but I do have that opportunity to bring in certain cost codes or cost code ranges if I ever wanted to. I'm going to select all of my standard default trades and suppliers, and we always have the opportunity of changing that up. But every project that you're processing through on the brick side can lean on a standard or default trade and supplier based off of the project that you're building in. So here I brought in 114 detailed items for this particular budget. So I'm just going to hit close and we're going to take a peek at that. So the 114 is right here. I now have a subtotal. If I want to go ahead and view the details, I can go up to the details section here or double click on that line item if I wanted to. From here, I have my subtotal. My job information is being presented here. I've got anticipated margins and that sort right now, all from this one screen. I can change up job information if I needed to at this stage of the game. And if anybody ever wants to see that, feel free to reach out to our team. Currently, I have all of the cost codes displayed down the left-hand side of my screen. And then I have an options column here as well. So you can see if I had only brought in the standard job for plumbing rough-in, the purchase order would have been issued for $2,200. But right below there, on the same cost code, we're bringing in an additional $300 item. So that's being driven from those items that the customer has added to their sales contract. Again, making sure we blend all of that information in one file swoop here. So after I would typically review this page in a little bit more detail, if I'm happy with everything on here, I'm just going to go back to the main page. And from here, I can hit print orders. Now, naturally, I'm not going to be printing these purchase orders out right now. I could if I really wanted to, but the ultimate goal for us is to send them over to Bill Pro so that the scheduling team can actually drive their construction schedules and everything right with these purchase orders, and the trades and suppliers would be able to see them in the Bill Pro or in the Supply Pro side. So it's letting me know that I'm going to go ahead and process the purchase orders. I do have the ability to change my date range in here if I wanted to. On the purchase orders, if I had any work orders or anything like that, I could also print them at this time, which I'm going to go ahead and do. It's going to ask me those questions. I can release multiple jobs at once. We're going to stick to the one here. And again, I can do all cost codes, certain cost code ranges. So if I'm issuing my purchase orders in chunks, I could go by cost code range if I wanted to as well, and then select that on another screen. Issue them by trades and suppliers. My goal here is to issue all of them in one file swoop. And I'm going to have a whole bunch of reporting tools that are going to come up as well at the same time. So I'm just going to hit next. I could send any of this off to Excel if I wanted to. And on this page is just summarizing all the information that I have chosen. So I'm just going to hit finish here. It's going to go ahead and generate the purchase orders. So if I wanted to see each and every purchase order, I could go into this view area. There's a summary level, which is going to have a line item for every single purchase order if I wanted to see that as well. One of my favorite items is we've got our job costs budgets right from here. So I can view this information. I've got my cost codes going down the left, the description, the PO budget, additional line items, everything that we're looking for from that last screen, and on some screens that will be presented with coming up here, you're going to see all of this information. So I'm just going to close this screen for a moment. You don't have to save it because you can bring up that information again if you want to. Some people like to, and then you can save it to a PDF if you need it. So I'm going to close this, and this job is going to pop off of here because we've already released all of my purchase orders. So now we have the opportunity to explore all this information from the job cost side. So I'm going to go onto my main menu and over to the job cost section. From here, I'm going to go into my job cost display. And we're going to bring up that job that we just released purchase orders on. So in the gray line here is my filter. I'm going to type in 106, which is Cottonwood Place. And then I'm going to bring up job 56. And I'm just going to hit Control F to find that job. So there's the job we were looking at earlier. Now that I'm on that job, I can get into the web here. So if I, first of all, I can double click on this if I wanted to dig into it a little bit deeper. I can see all of my cost codes, the cost code description, the actual budget amount, all of that right from here. In the top right-hand side, I can click on total, and a window is going to pop up with some margin information, direct costs, indirect costs, just like we saw on the sales side. I can get into my sales contract right from here. So on that sales contract side, I can see the purchaser that they purchased. If I'd originally had a purchaser on here and then it canceled, I'd actually be able to see that information as well right from here. Now, naturally, this job is brand new, so we don't have any warranty information at this stage of the game, but if I did, if it was further along, I could see that right from here. I can go to those purchase orders. You can see that information again. If I had any construction loans, they would be displayed here. Earnest money, same scenario. The categories based off of how you're setting your system up. You're going to be able to see all of your breakdown on your lot, material, labor. So you will set this all up at the beginning during the implementation process of the different buckets that you want your costs to be grouped into. And then at any given time, I can go into that WIP section and see exactly where I'm at. So because we just processed this, I don't have anything in my actual costs section at this stage of the game. So let's bring up one other job that I know I do have some actual costs in, so we can kind of see some of that information and how we can dig into it. So again, we'll filter on 106 here. And I think on lot 8, got some job costs in there. So let's just pick on this one here. We'll go into the WIP section right from here. On this screen, I've got some framing material, so I can dig into that. I'm going to be able to see the vendors that have been paying on there, the vendor name. If there was a purchase order, it would be here, and I could sort on that purchase order column if I needed to and bring that purchase order right up to the top. The rest of them are all variances from here, and they're coded with that S. And the S, I do believe, says stolen material, but we'll probably see that one on another screen. If I wanted to see some additional items on that purchase order, I could start to dig down right from here and see exactly all of the details, check number, if there's a check that's been paid against it, everything is right here at my fingertips. So I'm going to close out on this screen, and right from here, instead of backing up or anything like that, I can just guide myself over to the left-hand side of the screen, click on the report section, and we're going to finish up with that report here. So let's go down to the job cost detail. On here, I'm just going to bring that up from the beginning of the year and today's date. And again, I can preload or define some of this and then hit skip to end if I ever need to. So I'm just going to hit next right here. I could select all jobs, specific job if I want to, and I'm going to leave this one defaulted to my specific job, but I have the ability to filter down in any area I need to. I'm just going to hit next on that job. If I don't know the job number, I can look it up or I can type it in. I'm just going to hit add, and again, I could add multiple jobs if I wanted. Hit next. I'm going to use all cost codes, still giving me the ability to really focus down in on specific cost codes if I wanted. I'm going to bring my direct and overhead costs as well, but I do have some flexibility there. I could display my original budget if I wanted. I've been presented with that report criteria that I just went through. I'm also going to show you here how we can send this off into Excel. So I'm just going to hit finish. So the report will be coming up in a couple of different ways. I can see it on the screen, I can print it, and then I can also view this directly from the Excel side. So let's see it right on the screen to begin with here. On the screen, as I go down, first of all, on the right-hand side, all of the filter information that I was selecting earlier is being presented. Then I've got my cost codes and that cost code description. So very similar to that original report that I was given when I ran my budget. I'm always being presented with that information in the same format. As I scroll down the screen, we're getting totals for our cost codes. Here we've got our framing material, who we've been paying it against, the dates that this has been paid, and how much is left still within that budget. As I can continue to scroll down the screen, I'm presented with all of that stolen material with that variance code of the S as I go down. As I continue down the screen here, eventually for all of this framing material, I'll get a total at the bottom as to what's currently being displayed, how much I've spent on my budget versus how much I have left as well. So I'm going to close this particular window. I'm also going to open this one up in Excel for us. So when I hit the Excel icon, just be asked if I want to go ahead and open it up. We'll say yes, and then we'll maximize the screen on this one. I'll enable the editing. So from here, I do again have all of that same information. I typically would go ahead and freeze this line here. And now I can scroll down the screen relating to that framing material. I can see my check number, date, the vendor. So all of this information is presented here. If I needed to add in some formulas or wanted to do any calculations, anything you can do in Excel, I would be able to do right from this particular screen as well. At the bottom though, we have the detail, and then we also have the summary rows. So again, I could go ahead and freeze that particular line. As I scroll down, my framing material, miscellaneous is going to be identified. We've got our cost code totals. I can keep scrolling down the screen and I'm going to get that total for the cost code that I'm looking at for my framing material. I still have my variances broken out in column O here as well. So there's a lot of flexibility on the bricks side. Oops, I'm going to close that one. We're not going to save this. You can bring up those reports, like I said, right on the screen. We could print it or send it off to Excel like we did. So it's kind of the budget versus job cost from the bricks side. So I would like to actually turn this over now to Demery so she can actually show you all of the wonderful tools you're going to be able to get to use on the informXL side. I don't know, as a past estimator and purchaser, how I probably would have lived without informXL. It's just a super, super powerful tool. So we're excited to have them as partners on the Hyphen side.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and share my screen. Thank you so much, Nicole and Kate. My name is Demery Walters. I am the product manager for the informXL for Bricks product. As it stands today, our Bricks product line features a suite of 7 Excel-based reporting tools that'll allow you that customizable real-time reporting. Our goal was to make data analysis as accessible as possible and make your Bricks data as digestible as possible. We currently offer 7 reporting tools, each correlating to a different area of Bricks. So we have sales data, accounts payable, GL data, purchase orders, takeoffs, job details, and of course, job cost. So today I'd like to introduce our job cost report to you at a high level. Like I said, our goal was to make all of our reporting tools as customizable as possible. So there are a ton of features that we won't be able to get through. But hopefully today I can highlight a few use cases for you and show you what our customers might be doing with this analyzer on a day-to-day basis. I'll be sort of zipping through this mini demo. So if you want a more in-depth demo, please feel free to reach out to the team and we can get you scheduled for a longer one-on-one session. Let's go ahead and open up our job cost. So every one of our analyzers is going to follow a similar format to this. So up top, you're going to have what we call our ribbon. It's an Excel add-in, right? So like I said, this is all Excel-based reporting. So you still have all of the Excel features available to you up here, along with our Excel ribbon here. This is going to hold all of your parameters that are going to filter down the data that's going to come out into this table below. So when we select our parameters and we hit that Get Data button, what this analyzer is going to do is it's going to reach into a database that's sitting behind your Bricks system and grab your Bricks data that's applicable to the parameters that you selected up here. Down here, you're going to see a bunch of pivot tables that we created. We're going to dive into those a little bit later, but the goal of our pivot tables was to give you a jumping off point and a starting point for getting that higher level analysis if you're not wanting to dig into the nitty gritty or one lot at a time. So looking at our parameters up top, let's run through them real quick. We're going to have these first 7. These are our operational parameters. And we built these to be a hierarchy. And let me show you what I mean by that. If you hit this drop down button here, what you're going to see is a list of every single lot that's applicable to your organization. Obviously, if you're wanting to look at a few specific lots or you're wanting to look at lots specific in one project, scrolling through this entire list is a bit cumbersome. So what we did was we built it such that if you know, for instance, that you wanted to see some lots in Cottonwood Place, you can select that project and your job list is going to be filtered down to only the jobs that are applicable to that project. Okay, and that applies to all of these first 7 parameters. So if you knew you wanted a project in North Dallas, your project list is going to be filtered down to only the projects within North Dallas. Okay, we have our cost parameters here. These are going to work very similarly. If you open up that dropdown for all of your cost codes, you're going to get your list of all cost codes applicable to job costing in your organization. Now, this is demo data, so this is a pretty short list here, but as I'm sure all of you know, your list of cost codes, for job costing is likely to be a whole lot longer in a real organization. So we wanted to give you the ability to narrow it down. If you wanted to look for a few cost codes applicable to material, for instance, your list is going to be narrowed down to only the cost codes within that category. Okay, you're going to have your from and to dates here. These are going to apply to the accounting date of the transaction. So it's only going to pull the transactions that happened within those dates. And finally, you're going to have your job criteria dropdown. This is built in so that you can do an apples to apples comparison. So if you wanted to run and compare your job costing for every job, say in Cottonwood Place, you're going to run into a little bit of a data issue because some of your lots may not be started, some of them might be started, some might be sold, some might be closed. And obviously those are all going to have different varying degrees of completeness. So what we wanted to do was build in the option for you to, for instance, compare every job that was closed in 2021 in a given project. So that way you're comparing that apples to apples. Okay, real quick, going over to the right, you're going to have that Get Data button, like I said, that's going to populate this table below once you select your parameters. You're going to have your Set Print and Publish PDF. These are going to be great for when you want to distribute the data that you pulled out of this analyzer without sending the analyzer itself, especially for security reasons. We have our clear filters, which is a great way to just do a reset before you move on to new analysis. I'm going to show you that a little bit later. You're going to have a few extra options. You're going to have a link to our support, our YouTube channel, and then what we call Field Chooser. So we built this report with what we believe to be the fields you're going to want to see, but we know every organization is different and you're going to want to segment your data differently. So if you open up this Field Chooser, what you're going to see is a whole lot of options for new columns that we didn't include, but we figured you might want to see, right? So if you decided that you wanted to pull in your colors complete dates or your buyer plan approved dates, you can always do that. You can bring in extra vendor information, whatever you want to bring in to the end of your analyzer, we allow that through that Field Chooser. Okay, so let's go ahead and clear our parameters and let's pull data for a lot and see what we get. Let's look at Cottonwood Place and job number 2. So I hit that Get Data, you see the spinning globe down there. That meant that it was reaching out to the database and getting your data. So quick tour, again, we have our project information here. We have some job information, some key dates if you want to segment your data that way, your sales price, your cost codes, your budgets, your actuals, your budget analysis, and then all of your individual transaction details if you really want to dig into that nitty-gritty. So if I'm an analyst and I just pulled the data for job number 2, I'll notice that we spent roughly $245,000. Our original budget was roughly 247, and our current budget is sitting at 263. So I might see right off the bat that we're below budget so far for both by 2,000 for our original budget and 16,000 for our current budget. This is a ton of data to look through, right? Once again, you're back into that scrolling. So what we wanted to do was make these headings and this summary data able for you to drill down, right? So if you wanted to look at only your material cost codes, for instance, all of those headers are going to adjust so you can run that budget versus actual analysis on a much more granular level. So again, if I'm an analyst, what I might notice here is that we never set a budget for flooring, 2195. So we spent $7,500 and that did end up in our budget, but we're going to have that $7,500 overage for that cost code and that lot. Okay, and a little bit more complicated of an example up here for framing material, we did budget $10,657, and you might notice we did spend that $10,657 here, but we also have these 2 other transactions that hit that lot in that cost code, and that's where having that transaction information to the right is going to be super helpful. So over here is when you can dig into your PO number, your invoice number, and of course your variance reasons. And over here, you're going to have your variance code and detailed description. Okay, so this is going to be super helpful for doing that nitty-gritty analysis. The great thing about variances is once we had a few customers starting to really rely on this, we got a request for a way to make it easy for them to run a variance-only report. So that brings us to this variance-only checkbox. So if we wanted to look at how is this project doing, how are we doing for our variances across the board here, let's look at every single lot and look at only our variances. We can clear out that job filter, bring in variances only, and get that data. If you recall earlier, I did put a filter on our cost code types, and that's when we can use that clear filters button. And now we're looking at our variances only for every single job in that project. You're going to notice we still have our summary rows, right? And the reason we did that is we wanted to show you we are still taking things like rough grade and final grade into account, but there are no variances. So it's going to show that $0 job cost and $0 open PO amount. For framing material, you'll see we have that $3,000 and that $5,000 that we spent that has that variance code attached. And you can scroll through and you can look at those variances, but again, we're back into that scrolling, which is what we really wanted to get away from. We wanted to give you an easily digestible way to view that data. And that's what these pivot tables end up being for, right? So let's take a look at this variance pivot table that we built. Let's go ahead and limit it down to our transaction level. Perfect. So now you can see every job in that project and every variance reason and the total amount of variance dollars spent. Okay, but again, we wanted these to be as customizable as possible, right? This was a starting point. We wanted to give you an idea, but maybe what you want is something that is a little more applicable to how you like to look at your data. So let me show you some common ways that we see our pivot tables being edited. Maybe I'm not a super operational person and maybe these job numbers don't mean anything to me. What I can always do is replace them with something like your address that quickly, right? So now already it's looking a little more digestible according to what I might want to look at. So I'm seeing these lots now by address makes a bit more sense. I'm seeing these dollar amounts. I'm seeing a few lots that might not be applicable. So I can always filter those out. And I'm seeing my list of applicable lots and their dollar amounts. Okay, let's go ahead and expand these. Perfect. One other thing that I'm noticing is this is looking pretty sparse, right? So if we look at our job cost tab, there was kind of a lot of variance items in this project, especially once we got down to those stolen items that Nicole mentioned earlier. But those dollar amounts in our pivot table looked pretty sparse. So what I'm noticing when I'm looking is we have kind of a lot of those variance transactions sitting in our open POs and not our job cost amount. And that's again going to depend on how you want to look at your data, but maybe for my purposes, I want those POs to be included. So let me see. Let's go ahead and add that open PO amount here. And now you see for every single variance reason, you're going to have your job cost amount, and you're going to have your PO amounts. You can have them separated if you want to, but maybe for my purposes, I'd like to see them combined, just $1 amount for each variance reason. I can do theirs. I can create something like a calculated field. And let's find our open POs plus our job cost amount. Let's replace that data. Let's get rid of those original columns and just see that combined amount. So now we have our job cost amount, our open POs by address, and this might be something that looks a little bit better to you, something that's more applicable to the way you want to see your data. We want this to be something we distribute. Maybe we want to format it, make it nice and pretty. Go ahead and format those as currency. Perfect. So if I'm a numbers person, this is exactly what I want to see, right? I can quickly see who the problem children are. Something's going on with 1121 Ridgemont Drive. Maybe we need to look into that. For something like 1418 Blake Avenue, things are looking pretty great. That might just be a different stage. But that's where you can start to get that higher level analysis without digging into those individual transactions. What's great about pivot tables is you also can easily create charts, right? Some people are a lot more visual. So let's go ahead and insert something like, let's say, a stacked bar chart. Okay. All right, to make it a little bit easier to see what's going on, let's go ahead and sort those grand totals. And perfect. Now I have a quick one-stop shop to look at every single lot in that project, what the variance amount is, and where those variances are coming from. So without having to dig into those individual transactions, I can see there's a lot of builder error happening for 1400 Blake Avenue, but for just about every other lot, a lot of it is sitting in that other category. So maybe that's going to tell us that we need to split out more of our variance categories. I'm not sure, but this is a great spot to look at that total variance view. The great thing about building something like this is next time you save your job cost and you open it back up, you're just going to hit that get data button again, and it's going to be refreshed with brand new data, but keep this formatting so you can see up to date, real time, how are your variances looking at a glance. Okay, let's go ahead and switch gears and look at one other common use case for our job costing. Commonly, people really want to see profit analysis. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at some profit projections for a range of lots. Let's look at 9 through 16. Any of these parameters with a parentheses S can be multi-select. So in this case, I'm going to select those 7 and hit Get Data. All right, so now we're looking at all of the job costing data for all of those lots. Again, we're back on the main tab with all of those individual transaction levels. I want to talk real quick about where that profit projection is going to come from. So we already talked a bit about the budgeting fields. We talked about our job cost amount and open POs, but an important key component for our projections is going to be this estimated cost at completion. Without getting too much into the nitty-gritty of how that's calculated, it's going to look at a combination of your budgets, your job cost amounts, your open POs, and even your accrual method for that particular cost code. And it's going to create somewhat of a forecast of how much, we believe is going to be spent in that cost code for that lot. For some of these, it's really easy to see what's happening, right? For turnkey foundation, for instance, we had our original budget of $10,791. That's still our current budget, and that's the exact amount we already spent. So our estimated cost at completion calculation is going to assume you're done spending in that cost code for that lot. We're going to assume your estimated cost to complete is that $10,791. Okay. A bit of a more complicated example here for framing. We had no original budget. We do currently have a budget of $8,691. But between our job cost amounts and our open POs, we've already spent $8,624. Okay, so that's a bit over this budget here. So it's going to assume you already hit your budget, you passed it a little bit, there's nothing special in the system for that cost code. We're going to assume you are done spending for framing material at that $8,624. Okay, I wanted to talk through that a bit because it's the combination of that estimated cost to complete with your sales price that's going to drive that profit projection. So let's look at this first pivot table here. Get data now that we refreshed new data on that job cost tab. Let's go ahead and look at our summary rows. Perfect. So right here we can see our sales price, our estimated cost to complete, our projected dollar amount based on that estimated cost to complete and sales price, and our projected profit percentage. So this is meant to be a little bit of a stopgap for gross margin, right? Every company wants to calculate their gross margin differently. Everyone has different ideas of what needs to be included or not. But this is a good place to sort of get your finger on the pulse. It might not be the exact numbers for gross margin, the way that you calculate it at your company, but this is going to give you that really good high level view to, see if there's any red flags, see if there's anything you need to dig into before you get too far in the process. So again, if I'm an analyst, I might see this 1137 Ridgemont with a 51.2% projected profit. We're averaging roughly 26 for everything else. So something's probably going on there. It might be that we're early on, so our estimated cost to complete is pretty low. It does look like that's the case here. It's not pulling quite enough data yet. But that's something that we might want to look further into. Or if I'm a little bit more operationally minded, I might know that 1202 Sterling Street and 1204 Sterling Street are the exact same plan, okay, in the same project, and notice that there's a 5% margin difference. So that's a little bit of a red flag to me, right? Because there's a $5,000 difference in your sales price, but a $20,000 difference in your estimated cost to complete. And so that's something that I might want to dig into. I might need to adjust my sales price. I might need to look further into those variances, but there's my high level view that gives me that red flag, something I need to look into. This is a super commonly used pivot table for us, and it's used for all sorts of things. We have one client that added a bunch of calculated columns and calculated fields to get it to be somewhat of their gross margin analyzer. We have somebody that is using it to find their projected profit percentage once you allocate your shell costs for multifamily. It really spans the gamut, and that's where we get really excited when we see people diving in and making these their own and finding their own ways to dig into that data, and our pivot tables are a really great place to do that. Awesome. So I think I am pushing it on time a little bit, so thank you all, and I'm going to pass us back to Kate.
All right. Does anybody have any questions over either the informXL or the Hyphen brick side? Okay, I know I do for Demiri. For the job analyzer, can the analyzer job cost on cost per square foot? Can you analyze that on like a cost per square foot basis?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So we included a cost per square foot column here, and we included it as a formula. At first, we were calculating it on the back side, but what we noticed is that everyone wants to see cost per square foot differently, right? It sounds like a really simple calculation, but it's not, right? Because you might want to see your budget per square foot, your original budget per square foot, or even your job cost amount per square foot. And also bricks is so flexible that you also have your living area square foot, your marketing square foot. There's so many options for how you might want to see it, right? So what we decided to do was enter a formula that we believed would be most applicable to most people, but it's absolutely something that you can customize on your side. So in this case, we're showing that $0. I don't think there's any square feet estimated for these particular lots that I pulled in our demo data, but let me just go ahead and add some so you can see what it would look like. There we go. So let's say that's our square footage. Now you're going to see that $85,000 spread out among those square feet that we saw over there. And this is something that we included, again, to be as customizable as possible. You're going to notice that if I make a change to something like, let's say I want it to be job cost amount instead, that formula is going to copy all the way down. So you only have to enter it once, and it's going to change for the life of that analyzer until you decide to change it again. We also included a cost per square foot pivot so that you can dig in further. Again, our demo data is a little messy. We're missing lots of square footages. So what this would do a little bit better is it would have your plan, and it would have your square footages or your cost per square feet, excuse me, on a plan by plan basis, so you can run that comparison. Right now, it's all going to be red in that first column because we set up some conditional formatting to pull the highest cost per square foot among those plans. So if there was data populating here, you'd be able to see that possibly you're spending more per square foot on the 1952C for rough grade than for every other plan, and that's something you can dig into. So absolutely, lots of our customers do want to see data on a cost per square foot basis, and we, again, wanted to make that super flexible.
Okay, awesome. That's like really nice. And then I also have another question. It's more of a formatting question. Can you choose which columns appear on the main tab there?
Yes, okay, so that's a great question. So yes and no, right? This is a little bit limited in that term or in that functionality, but there are tons of columns that are hidden here. You may have seen me ungrouping these before. Like I said, I'm zipping through this demo. But if you go ahead and expand, you can see that there are tons of columns in this analyzer that we hid, but that are available for you if you want to make them available. Right. So for instance, address, right? Again, we built it thinking people might not want to see address all the time. So we hid it, but we want it to be customizable. So you can always ungroup. And when you button everything back up, that address is going to be out for you to look at whenever you want to look at it. And for the life of that analyzer, like I said. And then again, like I mentioned in the beginning, we have our field chooser as well. So if you're needing something and you're just not seeing it here, like again, if you wanted to pull your, plot plan order dates, or if you wanted to segment by some warranty dates, for instance, you can always pull those in and they're going to populate at the end. So let's say I wanted to see vendor abbreviations because I want to dig into that. Then what you're going to see is now that's going to populate at the end here, and you're going to have that column available to you even if it wasn't available beforehand. So it's somewhat customizable. We have lots of available columns. We prefer you don't delete columns because getting them back is a little bit difficult. You'll likely have to start with a new analyzer. But yeah, there's tons of data to see, and you can totally hide or expand as much as you might want to see.
Okay, awesome. And Nicole, I don't know if you would like me to switch over to your presentation again, because I do have a couple questions for you as well.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Let's just see if we can answer them without flipping through.
Okay. Can you also run your budget and job cost reporting for a customer sale? Can you also run that for spec homes?
Yes, actually, and I'm sorry, I forgot to touch on that one. Yes, we support, not only your customer sales, but you can create spec homes and everything right within the Bricks sales system or the Bricks ERP system. And you're going to be able to get all of that same information specifically off of spec homes as well.
Okay, awesome. And then if options are added after a budget is run, can you still add the information to the budget and then update the budget again?
Yes, you can actually. So we realize that naturally not everybody knows what they're going to build, right? What they're going to add to their jobs from the get-go. So even if I've already processed the budget, I can go in, process it again from the same way I did, and then just choose options only. It will appear in a separate column, so we won't have to worry about that. So it will be in addition to the original budget, but you'll still have a budget that you're going to be able to use on the informXL side with all of the analyzers and that sort, and it'll still populate all of your information within the Bricks reporting and on the detailed screens that we were looking at in the job cost side. So yes, you can do that.
Okay, awesome. And we just thank Nicole and Demiri for presenting today and sharing those amazing products with us. And we hope to see you guys again in future webinars.